You're listening to KZUM News on 89.3 KZUM Lincoln and KZUM HD. Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of KZUM News, an hour dedicated to learning more about what is going on in Lincoln and the surrounding areas. I am the news director and your host, Amantha Dickman.
My name is Rebecca Ford, KZUM's news intern, and I will be your host for this next story. Last week, we discussed several social service organizations in Lincoln and their responses to the extreme weather we experienced several weeks ago. I spoke with the Lincoln Police Department and Centerpoint to determine their roles in addressing these temperature crises, how they support those without shelter, and their collaborative alternate response program. I also had the opportunity to speak with Alan Sampson, Executive Director of Matt Talbot, to discuss their decision to extend their hours to keep people warm and fed. Today, I want to continue focusing on how social service organizations respond to an increased demand and strain on resources, and how members of the community can help. To begin, I spoke with Pastor Tom of People's City Mission to learn what their response was when they were nearly double their capacity, and how the community showed an outpouring of support and their plans going forward.
People's City Mission. I've been here for 21 years now, and I kind of oversee all the operations. I have a staff of about 100 or so folks that work for me, a little over 100, and so we are the only homeless shelter in the city, so we deal with all of the homeless, both chronic and crisis. We usually have anywhere from 350 to 400 people staying here. It's been over 400 here for the last couple weeks, and we're not sure it's going to go down much. We're going to have to see if it does. Mission was originally built for about 250 to 280, so we're in a 45-year-old building, and we're putting over 100 women and kids and men on the floor, trying to service Lincoln shelter. One of the problems Lincoln has is it doesn't have enough shelter capacity. We've got some stats we've pulled. We're doing a capital campaign to try to build, and as part of that, we pulled some stats that shows, virtually every city our size has twice or more the shelter space than Lincoln. For instance, Omaha has one shelter bed for every 240 people. Orlando, Florida, I think it's 250. Madison, Wisconsin, our similar size, about 300. I think Sioux City is about 300 or so. Lincoln has one shelter bed for every 983 people. So we are way, way behind other cities our size in shelter space. And then being the only homeless shelter in the city, when it starts to cramp up like this, we kind of bear the burden of that.
Right. Do you find that's a seasonal concern? Is it something that happens every winter, or was it especially bad this year?
I think as homeless continues to grow, we're seeing a general growth. It's seasonal in terms of the men. We have some of the guys who live in camps out in the streets. And when it gets below 15 or 20, they'll start to wander in here for a while until it warms up. But we had 188 families here, and families are not weather related. They're not out on the streets generally, and so we think that 400 number may hold through the whole year.
How do you respond to that? How are you able to?
Well, we just try to tell the public the mission is sort of unique among the nonprofit world in that we raise and spend about $20 million, but only 0.5% of that comes from grants or United Way or any kind of funding. We get it all from the public. We have about 33,000 households, a couple of businesses, and 150 or so religious establishments that fund us, and that's generally how we do it. So for us, we rely totally on public giving. Last year, we helped about 33,000 unduplicated people in the city between the shelter and our operations out at our help center. And so we figure about 40% of Lincoln is getting something from us or giving something to us. So we have a pretty strong outreach into the community.
How do you find the community supports you during such intense times?
Been very generous. Recently, you probably saw the news articles. We had showed some child eating cereals, talked about the need for that. We got gaylords full of cereal people bought us, and the public tends to respond. And, we've been going on now for 118 years. And we've always been able to support the mission through charity and through good generosity from the public, and so we continue to look to that. And we're also doing some some social enterprise to try to implement, or as I said, augment that a little bit. We have a recycling program, and what that was is we have a help center out there, and it's sort of the reverse logic of a thrift store. If you see a thrift store, we used to have one years ago. You sell the good stuff, and what people don't take, you give away to people in need if you give away anything. We decided to flip it around and give away the very best stuff and sell what they don't take in recycling. And we actually make 10 times more money doing that than you do running a thrift store. And so we're recycling stuff that our folks don't take at the help center. But now we have 28,000 unique individuals shopping there for clothing, pots, pans, shoes, household goods, toys, you name it. And a couple million pounds of food I think we give away a year. And it's all for free. It's like a free thrift store. And then we recycle just the clothing and shoes that they don't take or we have extra of. And now we've got operations in Kearney, and we just opened up an operation in Senegal, Africa, in which we have our own for-profit business there that we can actually take a piece of clothing that someone donates to us, and if it's not taken, sell it to the end user in Africa and control the entire distribution chain. So we're hoping that'll generate more money so we can eventually fund the mission. Maybe 30% of our income comes from social enterprise, from recycling, and 70% from donations. As we sort of expand, we're trying to build a new family center over across the street, and if we're able to do that, that should get us to 600 or 700 beds. Still not enough, but like I said, we are way behind the 8 ball in terms of shelter space, but that would get us closer to what other cities are doing.
Mm-hmm. What are the names of those stores? You said you had the thrift stores. Are those accessible to the public, and how can they access them?
Yeah, it's called the Help Center, and it's right behind East Park Theaters on 66th and O Street there. And anybody can come in if they're within 200-300% of the poverty line and shop there. It's like a free thrift store. Mm-hmm. You walk in and there's all kinds of items there that people donate to us. In fact, if people want to see it and have 2 minutes, they can go to YouTube and just type in People's City Mission Help Center. And we have a 2-minute video that shows you everything there and kind of how we do it and how we recycle in the back. But it's a really great operation. And again, we sell the bad stuff and we give the good stuff away, and it's actually more profitable to do that. And that's actually going on around the country. What's happened, we've discovered, is that all over the United States you have nonprofits running thrift stores, and they don't make a lot of money at it because they don't have the volume. If you're Walmart, low prices and high volume works pretty good. Low prices and low volume doesn't have the same financial impact. And so people who are in the nonprofit world run these thrift stores, and they make a little bit of money, not much, but they sell the good stuff, and they either give away the bad stuff. Some don't give it away, but most do. And in the meantime, there is a group making a lot of money on donated clothing. They're for-profit businesses, and they put up these donation boxes. Right now, the zoo boxes out there, they were a March of Dimes. The city sued the March of Dimes, and the city lost, so they reverted over to the zoo boxes. But they give the charity 5 cents on the dollar. Well, the charity's excited about getting 5 cents for doing nothing. The for-profit is making a lot of money at it, but you are being taken the cleanest rather than your clothes, because if you gave me $100 right now, and I use just $5 for the homeless and $95 for administration and other things, you probably wouldn't want to give me another $100. But that's what happens if you throw clothes in those boxes. And so people are doing this all over the United States. We have nonprofits running thrift stores, while for-profits are running donation boxes. And it's the for-profits making most of the money on donated clothing. It's kind of sad. So we just ditched the thrift store and started collecting clothing. And like I said, we're different than 100% of our donations go to the need, because the same trucks picking up the clothing in our boxes are the same trucks that are giving out food, same warehouse being used both purposes. So it's funding our ability to help all those people. So really 100% of our donation gets to the need versus 5%. So it's a much better deal. We try to let the public know that, and it's been pretty successful doing that. So yeah.
Very nice. That sounds like a very unique approach that I haven't personally heard before. And your organization as a whole is very unique as the only one of its sort in Lincoln.
Yes.
Do you have any resources that people might not know, that the general public might not know that you offer?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think the mission mainly houses people. They kind of think we're sort of, 3 hots and a cot, and we serve some meals and we send them on their way. But actually, we provide a fair amount of services to folks here, and we have a whole list of them on our website. But we help people get driver's license. We help them connect to other agencies. We do some casework here. We provide different things that they might need. Generally, if someone comes to the mission, we ask them 2 questions. The first question is, how do we get you into permanent housing? Now, it might surprise folks, but a fair number of people don't need any government help. That is, they're here, and then they can get back on their feet and go get their own place, so they don't need permanent supportive housing or Section 8 housing, and some do. For those who do, we try to connect them to those resources. And the second question we ask, after how do we get you more permanently placed, is why are you here? What's the issue? Generally, not always, but generally if someone's homeless, they're homeless for a reason. Could be chemical addictions like drugs and alcohol. Could be they got divorced, they were suffering domestic violence. That's a big one. I read recently a stat that 1 in 3 women in Nebraska are being abused and 1 in 4 men. Well, if that's true in Lincoln, that's 40,000 ladies in an abusive situation. And we don't begin to have the resources for that, and so there's just a lot of reasons people become homeless. If they can get out of being in an abusive situation, or they don't have friends or family to go couch surf with, they're in trouble. And so we try to meet just a whole lot of needs. We're not looking to ever be a domestic violence shelter. That's not our thing. We're just a general purpose shelter. That's just one cause. There's, another big one is divorce. Both men and women are here because of divorce more than you might suspect. There's just people kind of homeless for a lot of different reasons, and we try to pick them up kind of as the only kind of all-purpose shelter in the city. So, yeah, there's a big need to expand. We cannot keep doing this for another 5 or 10 years. Like I said, we're in a 45-year-old building, and we're 50% over capacity, and we just can't keep going down this road much longer. So we're going to try to build a new building and see what we can do.
Absolutely. What are some of the most immediate ways members from the community can help People City Mission and drive your mission home?
I think the general public, we're very blessed. They're really connected to us. I tell folks that people, nonprofits, all of us, we don't need money, we need resources. Mm-hmm. That includes money, but it also includes your time, it includes things in your closet you don't need. Everybody can do something. Students, maybe they don't have a lot of money, they can volunteer, once a month somewhere. And here we have a little over 25,000 volunteers at the mission. And, they come from all sorts of places in life, and it makes a big difference. And it even doesn't take a lot of money necessary to solve poverty. We had a program years ago called 251. Didn't go very far. Just we couldn't promote it enough. We had other things going on. But we basically went to the community, especially college students, and said, look, for $2.51, we want you to buy 1 meal for 1 homeless person once a month. That's all you need to do. Just you buy 1 meal for 1 homeless person once a month, $2.51 price of a cup of coffee. We'll find 22,000 other people to do that, and if we can, you can feed the entire homeless population in Lincoln on your $2.51. And so it doesn't take people giving a lot, just a lot of people doing a little bit. And I don't think people always understand that a lot of this could be solved if more people got involved, and it isn't giving out their life savings or whatever. It's give $10, buy a couple 3 meals here, or if you want to connect with the mission, come volunteer. It blesses you as much as it blesses the people you're helping. Or you got something in your closet, you really aren't wearing it much anymore. Well, someone else could wear it, and it would really mean a lot to them, especially shoes or coats or things like that in the winter and in the summer. Little kids, they go through shoes like everybody else, but mom can't buy them new shoes because she can't do that. And so there's just all sorts of things people can do that doesn't really cost a lot, but if a lot of people were doing that, you could have a tremendous impact on poverty.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That is all the questions I had. Is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners?
No, appreciate it. No, thank you for talking.
Absolutely.
We just finished speaking with Pastor Tom at the People City Mission to learn more about their concerns with going over capacity, community support during extreme temperature fluctuations, and their plans to address their concerns moving forward.
Social service organizations in Lincoln all play a fairly collaborative role, working to support one another and fill niches. The Center for People fits right in, meeting individuals where they're at. First providing resources to meet basic needs, the Center for People offers services to enable people to take the next step in their education or into the workforce. I spoke with Irene Hargan, Center for People's Marketing and Communications Director, to learn how they bridge that gap, particularly in times of extreme temperature, and how they reach into the community.
With last week, we witnessed a lot of very extreme weather. The past 2 weeks, we've witnessed a lot of very extreme weather. And that's just something seasonal that people experience in Lincoln. But is there anything, can you speak to how that might be affecting your space when such extreme weather is coming in, how that's affecting people's basic needs or accessibility to some of the programs you offer?
Sure. I would say that definitely, I've got 2 little kids, so I'm used to following the LPS schedule. We are not following it exactly or even nowhere near as close. So I would say the rule of thumb for anybody who is part of our community, who's wondering if we're open, definitely we're very diligent in terms of communicating it and posting it on social media. We're also signed up with 1011 for their alerts, so like they know right away if we're open. With all this weather that you just mentioned, which definitely was not fun, but we're closed only one day. And we communicated it out immediately so everybody knew when and if we were going to be closed. So I would say in general, even if LPS is closed, just check and see. Most likely we are going to be open. The reason why we do understand that our community relies on us, and actually I just mentioned to you before that we are open for food distribution 4 days a week, Fridays a day when we do not have food distribution. However, during that time when it was very cold and we did not know if we would have to close one extra day, we actually decided that in case if we had to close another day, we would open food distribution for Friday to compensate, because we know that the community is counting on us.
Totally understand that. When I know you said you've been open, but do you find that kind of weather affects the people that are coming? Do you feel there's more stress on resources or people coming in?
No, we actually have our tracking system, because everybody who comes here, they have to, as you just saw now, they have to have their clarity cards scanned in. So at the end of the day, our pantry team does send us the numbers, the daily numbers of the people that came through, and we did not see a big drop in the numbers of people that were coming in.
Gotcha. Very nice. Well, do you find that the weather's ever been like a seasonal concern in the summer? Do you find any stresses on resources? How do you prepare for, seasons like this? Is there anything you do?
No, there's really no preparation besides, I would say, the fact that, if there's, big snow accumulation in the parking lot, definitely taking care of the parking lot is something that we would always do. But in general, I would say, if you think about it this way, it's very cold, but I still need to eat. I still need to get my food. So I think in that scheme of things, like maybe the weather is more of a concern for us, whereas if we didn't have food, that would become more important thing for you to think about. So I think it doesn't concern our community quite as much. They find a way to get here, and we make sure that we're here, the staff is here, we're open, the parking lot is cleaned up, and we're all ready to go.
Yeah. Do you find that people during this kind of weather, people are accessing your resources more, or is it just kind of the same baseline audience?
I would say it's the same baseline audience. There really has not been, strangely enough, I would say not the rain, the snow as much as the rain we've noticed. Really? Like when the weather is actually okay, but it's kind of like raining, we see less people. When it's snow, I think like everybody just braves the weather and it still shows up.
Gotcha. Do you find demand in certain areas from basic needs or language learning or community reentry? Do you find those fluctuate in certain ways throughout the year?
There's definitely, I've asked, because numbers are interesting, you definitely want to be sure that you're giving the right answer and the right numbers. So I've asked our different departments, finance and grants for the numbers. And definitely in the past year, we've seen a big growth from all English language learners, our career pathways. Just to give you an idea, that's maybe like if one number stays with you and your listeners, that will be it. To give you an idea how many people we serve a week, overall, it's over 5,800 people a week. So on average daily, we have about 1,200 people coming to the pantry. Normally, it's been more even now. So just in the pantry. And then we've got English language learners, we've got core class, we've got our other certificates program. So all across the board, there's been more demand. Now, when you have this demand, what we're trying to do, we try to listen to what our community needs. And by listen, I mean that we've actually started now in January a series of focus groups, because it is a little bit presumptuous for us to think that we know exactly what they need. So it's better quite often to ask what they need. And actually for our educational offering, that resulted in adding 2 extra career pathways, which is now hospitality. That's one of the pathways that we've added. So, and actually human services is another one that definitely is very much requested. So we're adding more services. We have a bigger room for ELL learners because we just have more people coming in. And actually right now, both of our English learning classes are at capacity. So we're not able to accept any new learners. And that is considering that we're one of the very few places, if not the only one, that offers the English language classes every single day of the week, including Friday.
Right. When you have those situations when you're over capacity or you're at capacity, I know you recently expanded your spaces. How else do you navigate those challenges? Is it just to wait it out? Do you just let it run its cycle?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the one thing is being very clear in terms of telling people what is happening, how they can keep track of it. Because, for example, for certain services, we definitely require people to have an appointment. They sign up through our website. So, put yourself on the wait list or you sign up for an appointment. Then we definitely have nothing against referring them out to other organizations, although my guess is that probably they're going to be at capacity too.
I understand. How do you get that sort of information out to people in the community that you have these services?
Well, I mean, I would say the website definitely is in a very good place. So we have all the information on the website. A lot of people still prefer to come and actually talk to somebody. They feel they are coming to the place that they know really, really well. So there are a lot of people that can explain things to them even better. So we definitely know for a fact that a lot of people, they do follow our social media. We just see it because of some other events that we've organized, and people always show up for something that interests them. So making sure that we do have reminders continuously about the upcoming events, about the educational offering that we have, about the farmers markets that are coming up.
Right. Is there anything people in the community can do to support Support Center for People in any way?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, again, I'm going to send pretty much everybody to 2 sources. First of all, I would say the best way is go to our website, and there's a part of it that's called Get Involved, where you can really see all of the things that we're doing. That's not just the pantry. Once again, if you're thinking about, I can either support with my money or I can support with my time. But even if you're supporting with your time, it doesn't mean that you'll automatically come and volunteer in the pantry. You can come and volunteer at our career fair. We have an event coming up in April that's going to be the Financial Literacy Conference. We're looking for volunteers for that. We have mock interviews. So let's say you're a retired teacher or a professor and you really would like to do that. We have plenty of opportunities. So first of all, get information in terms of what we offer on our website. And then I would say there's nothing better than seeing it yourselves. For you, it was the first time today, so probably it made a difference for you just seeing the space and understanding better what we do. Come here. We have a wonderful volunteer coordinator who'll be able to take on a quick tour, and then it's going to be just much easier for you. And believe me, you're going to be much more excited about signing up for something that you experienced or partly experienced firsthand.
Totally. Well, I think that's all the questions I had prepared. Do you have anything else you'd like to offer about the center or about resources? Anything you'd like to add on?
I think I really would love to see more people from the community, although we have great amount of people and organizations and companies coming in. I would just say reach out to us, say that you're interested. Maybe you're not quite sure how to work with us, like how you can help. It's a wonderful organization. It's the best group of people I've ever worked with that are really trying to help and doing their best to help. And I think it will be just like an unbelievable experience for you to come with your friends, to come with your kids. We had a lot of families that came during Toyland with their kids who were personal shoppers, and it was a great family bonding experience for them as well. So there's myriads of opportunities, and would love to have more of Lincoln community coming over here.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
We just finished speaking with Irene Hargan, the Marketing and Communications Director at Center for People, to discuss how Center for People works to bridge the gap between basic needs and opportunity, and how extreme weather impacts them. Winters are difficult for many people, but when temperatures get extreme, people without shelter face the greatest risk. Through the service of the Lincoln Police Department, Centerpoint, Matt Talbot, People's City Mission, Center for People, and any number of other social service organizations in Lincoln, we enable ourselves and our community to become proactive, practice empathy, and address the needs of those most in need. Thank you for listening.
Support for KZUM comes from Lincoln Pharmacy, a local neighborhood pharmacy located at 33rd and A Streets, offering medication therapy management, medical supplies, citywide prescription delivery, vaccinations, and more. Open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. More information at lincoln-rx.com.
And from
No Coast Roller Derby, a skater-owned and operated nonprofit organization since 2005. The opening event of the 2025 season is February 22nd at the Lincoln Sports Foundation Complex at 7600 North 70th Street. Doors open at 4 and the bout starts at 5 p.m. Tickets and more information are available at nocoastrollerderby.com.
Your Malone Community Center continues to be a cornerstone of cultural, educational, and social programming. The center is home to an out-of-school program. The lead agency for 2 community learning centers hosts a weekly food distribution service along with other programs. For more information on the Malone Community Center, please contact our office at 402-474-1110 or go to our website www.malonecenter.org. Celebrating the heritage of service since 1955, Your Malone Community Center.
And welcome back to today's episode of KZUM News. My name is Samantha Dickman, and I am the host for this afternoon's check-in with the Nebraska Legislature. Legislative Bill 541 was heard by the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee on Wednesday, March 5, 2025. Introduced by Senator Rick Holdcroft, LB 541 seeks to eliminate online voter registration, restrict voter registration by mail, outlines requirements for early voting, requires hand counting of ballots, and lastly, changes provisions relating to voter registration and voting. Senator Holdcroft presented the bill to the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee for review.
Represent Legislative District 36, which includes West and South Sarpy County. Today I am introducing LB 541. This bill is meant to bolster the confidence of Nebraskans in the security of our elections. I want to begin this hearing as I did in the interim study hearing for LR 357 conducted by this committee regarding elections last September. I want to say that I am confident in our Secretary of State and in the integrity of our elections in Nebraska. My goal in introducing this bill is not to rehash past elections or to criticize any state officer or agency. It is simply to give peace of mind to the electorate in our state regarding the security of our elections. 3 events have occurred in the past 5 years which have significantly modified the way our election officials do business. First, COVID. Second, the advancement of election software and tabulating machines. And third, voter ID. Initiative 432 from 2022 simply asks voters, shall the Nebraska Constitution be amended to require that before casting a ballot in any election, a qualified voter shall present a valid photographic identification in a manner specified by the legislature. Over 432,000 people, or 65% of voters, voted for this measure. Just over 228,000 people voted against the measure. LB 541 seeks to more closely honor the intent of the voters who approved Initiative 432 by assuring that valid photo IDs are associated with each registered voter. It also secures Nebraska elections by reverting to the previously observed form of absentee voting, in which the voter attests to being unable to vote in person or on a given election day. Additionally, it adds security features to official ballots, expands the number of ballots that are hand counted, sets parameters for the approval of vote tabulating machines, and enhances the security of ballot drop boxes. One of the objections presented to enhance election protection measures that was raised in the interim hearing was, if none of these things have ever happened, why are we creating new regulations? My argument to this is, why is that we wear seat belts, we take vitamin C, and we check our furnaces in the fall, not because something has happened, but as preventive measures. Our current voter rolls are maintained by an application called Power Profile, created and maintained by ES&S, the same folks who manufacture and program our tabulating machines. This is a nationally recognized software package used by many states to share information about voter registration across state lines. It is maintained by the Secretary of State. It was quite refreshing to hear from a representative from ES&S during the interim hearing. They are not at all the big bad wolves as they have been portrayed in some circles. This gentleman was completely open to having his machines opened and examined, and he was also more than happy to collaborate with the company that developed the ballots that you were presented. The number of mail-in ballots have exploded in some counties, largely due to the relaxation during COVID of who can vote by mail-in ballot. Election officials obviously lose control of ballots from the time they are mailed until they are returned, a period of time when they are most vulnerable to election fraud. Voting by mail is a privilege, not a right. I think we should take a hard look at reducing the list of individuals who vote by mail. A post-election audit is the process by which a hand count of ballots is conducted and the numbers compared to the machine output. By current statute, a 3% audit is required of pre-selected races. The Secretary of State actually conducts 10% currently. LB 541 proposes a minimum of a 25% hand count after the unofficial election results are released on election night. The sample ballots from Arizona that were handed to you are quite impressive. There is a covert watermark only visible by using ultraviolet light. We are estimating that this will only add around 5 cents to the cost of each ballot. AM 413 is a simple page and line amendment that cleans up and clarifies some language in the bill. Chairwoman Sanders and members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, thank you for your consideration of LB 541, and I would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Senator Holcroft. We'll check with the committee, see if there are any questions. Senator Kavanaugh.
Of course.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Senator Holcroft. I have a lot of questions, but I can save some for later. But my one question is, the bill allows the counties under 10,000 to continue to do vote by mail entirely, right?
Correct, yes.
Not every county that is eligible under 10,000 has begun or has opted for that at this point?
That's correct. They have the option. Either way.
Would they continue to have the option if they so chose to change it? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Senator Holcroft? See none, will you stay for closing?
I will be here for closing.
Thank you, Senator Holcroft. Are there any, we have...
The introduction of Legislative Bill 541 follows the 2023 implementation of voter ID laws in the state of Nebraska. In the 2022 general election, the majority of Nebraska voters passed a constitutional amendment requiring photo ID for voting. On June 1, 2023, Governor Jim Pillen signed Legislative Bill 514, which established voter identification requirements for elections in Nebraska. Now, only a year later, Senator Holdcroft wants to make additional changes to Nebraska's voting laws, citing election integrity concerns, despite reassurances from Secretary of State Bob Evnen that Nebraska elections are not experiencing interference. Those concerns were shared by several testifying proponents of LB 541, including Dana Sievers.
Except legal counsel, I remember him. My name is Dana Sievers, spelled D-A-N-N-A-S-E-E-V-E-R-S. Good afternoon to the committee. I rise today in support of LB 541 because it's time for Nebraska to stand up for integrity at the ballot box, and this committee should act to honor the will of the people who overwhelmingly elected Donald Trump in 2024 and carry out his agenda of secure, transparent elections to victory. During his recent cabinet meeting, President Trump laid out a clear vision for America's elections: ironclad security, zero tolerance for cheating, and a system where every legal vote counts, nothing less. He demanded watermarks on ballots, strict voter ID, and an end to the unmonitored drop boxes and electronic gimmicks that erode trust. LB 541 delivers on that vision with surgical precision, restricting mail-in chaos, mandating watermarks, securing drop boxes with 24/7 surveillance, and requiring hand counts to verify machine tallies. This isn't just a bill. It's a battle cry for the election integrity that echoes Trump's call to action. If you look around, states like Texas and Florida are charging ahead with aggressive election integrity bills, banning machines outright and imposing felony penalties for tampering. Georgia's cracking down on non-citizen voting with audits that leave no stone unturned. Nebraska's LB 541 is tame by comparison, yet it is a critical step forward. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're catching up to a national movement to safeguard democracy. Other states are showing courage, and we must join them. The people spoke in 24, delivering a landslide victory for Trump and his promise to end election nonsense. Nebraskans don't vote for half measures or weak-kneed excuses. Nebraskans didn't vote for half measures and weak-kneed excuses. They demanded a system that can trust, yet this legislature has failed them, unfortunately, time and again. Multiple election integrity bills have come before this committee. Bills to tighten voter rolls, secure ballots, stop fraud, and what happened? Nothing. Instead, the committee ignored the people and our elections remain vulnerable. This bill isn't radical. It's common sense. It's not about disenfranchisement. It's about guaranteeing every vote is real. Critics will whine about access, but LB 541 keeps early voting and drop boxes under strict rules so no legitimate voter is left out. The only ones hurt are the cheaters, and that's the point. Committee, we are at a crossroads. The people's will is clear. They want Trump's election integrity agenda enacted. LB 541 is your chance to finally deliver something meaningful after years of inaction. Nebraska deserves elections as strong as its spirit, and anything less is a betrayal of the voters who sent you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sievers. Are there any questions?
Senator. Thank you, Chairman. Vice Chair. Ms. Sievers, so your position is we can't trust the outcome of our elections currently?
My position is that we have proof of threat, plenty of proof of threat, and it would be very simple. And a lot of people thought that people like me would go away after the last election, but I'm back here again because I believe that we have proof of threat. And whether it's a Democrat or whether it's a Republican, I believe that we can and should secure our elections for everyone.
So we can trust the outcome of our elections then?
I personally do not, because of cyber threats. And what I have witnessed and seen across the nation causes me to believe that we cannot trust. And that is why you have people calling for one day of voting on paper ballots and hand counting back at the precinct level, which isn't that hard, and it's definitely not more expensive. It's a lie that it would be more expensive. It would be actually 9% of the total cost we spend now to count with the machines.
So then how do you know that President Trump won?
I don't.
So then why should we put any stock in his agenda if we don't know he's legitimately elected?
Well, the bottom line is if I count it by hand in my precinct, and I'm not anti-machine, I'll have you know, I'm okay with the machines being used to count the ballots as a check and balance system. I want to count the ballots by hand, and then I'll be happy to zip them through the machine and just check it, because I've gone through that before where we've hand counted, didn't quite match up, so you had to find out where the problem was. I'm not one of these anti-machine people, but I believe we have to be able to count them ourselves at the precinct level, because I know that that's going to be more fair.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Severs, thank you for your testimony. Are there any other testimony?
Meanwhile, several county election commissioners from across Nebraska attended the hearing to share their experiences with Election Day operations. Lancaster County Election Commissioner Todd Wilchin noted potential safety concerns that come with the change of voting regulations proposed by LB 541.
See if there are any questions for you. See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Todd Wilchin. Welcome back.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sanders. Members of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, my name is Todd Wilchin, Toddwiltgen, and I'm the Lancaster County Election Commissioner, and I am here today in opposition of LB 541. I have serious safety concerns about making the video surveillance of our drop boxes publicly available. I distributed a report about an incident that took place on Saturday, November 2nd, when the individuals associated with the Nebraska Voter Accuracy Project recorded a young male wearing a black sweatshirt approach one of our drop boxes on a skateboard and clearly deposit one single ballot envelope. He then took a selfie in front of the drop box. This recording of such an innocuous act, casting a ballot, was then widely disseminated through various social media platforms, falsely and defamatorily claiming he was a ballot mule. Overnight, the video was viewed over 1.5 million times, generating threats of vandalism of the drop box and violence against the young voter. After reviewing our surveillance footage, we were able to identify the voter and refer the threats to the Lincoln Police Department. The responding officer had the unenviable task of contacting the young voter and advising him about what had transpired. On November 5th, Election Day, an agent from another law enforcement agency contacted me and advised me that the online post had generated multiple death threats and that I should take care not to reveal the identity of the voter. There were online discussions about using facial recognition software to identify the young man. On November 9th, I received a public records request for our footage of this incident. Thankfully, I was able to deny the request under Nebraska Revised Statute, Section 84-712.05, subsection 9, which exists to protect government infrastructure and, in this case, the safety of an innocent voter. Providing the footage would have revealed the young man's identity and endangered his personal safety. The other provision of LB 541 I'd like to focus your attention on is the excessive mandatory manual audit requirement. Requiring counties to manually count 25% of ballots will unnecessarily and dramatically escalate election costs. The Election Act already mandates the county election officials conduct 3 separate independent tests prior to Election Day to verify the accuracy of the counting process. Following elections, counties conduct a manual audit at the discretion of the Nebraska Secretary of State. His office randomly selects the precincts and races for hand count audit to verify the accuracy of the counting process. Last November, we manually audited 3 races in 3 precincts. Our 2 manual audit teams hand counted almost 10,000 ballot questions, and it took 2 business days. Had we been required to manually count 25% of the ballots cast in the last election, we would have had to have used 50 teams to hand count over 1 million ballot questions. I estimate it would have taken 2,192 staff hours or 44 hours per team to conduct the audit. Payroll costs alone would have been $132,000. My office has taken pains to avoid drafting poll workers who only work 1 or 2 days a year. For a large-scale hand count, we would need over 250 workers for at least a week per election, so we would have no choice but to institute a draft, which would entail additional costs. Then you must also add the time and cost to secure a space large enough to accommodate those new workers for that week. All costs that would be ultimately borne by the taxpayers, by the property taxpayers. For these reasons and reasons outlined by my colleagues, I would ask that you not advance LB 541 to general file, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
You.
We'll check to see if there's any questions from the committee. See not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hall County Election Commissioner Tracy Overstreet added to Wilchin's concerns by highlighting the potential financial impact on voters when it comes to implementing some of the regulations outlined in LB 541.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sanders and committee. I am Tracy Overstreet, TracyOverstreet. I am the Hall County Election Commissioner. I am officed out of Grand Island. Our county board also opposes this bill, as well as myself as election commissioner, and I also am the co-chair with Mr. Cruz of the Election Law Committee for the Nebraska Association of County Clerks, Register of Deeds, and Election Commissioners. We also have a lot of concerns about this bill. LB 541 would eliminate online voter registration. Currently, 20% of Nebraskans are utilizing online voter registration. It's very important. People are able to update their registrations as well as register for the first time on nights, weekends, holidays. We have a lot of shift workers in our community, so it's important to have that accessibility for our voters. Voters have to update their voter registration whenever they change their name, their address, or their political party. So that's really important to have that accessibility. It's also very advantageous to us as election workers because we're not having to rekey in the information. We're not having to decipher someone's illegible handwriting on a paper form. So that's very helpful. If we did not have online voter registration, we would have to employ additional staff in our office. LB 541 also alters by mail voter registration, and I think does so in a way that would put us in conflict with federal law. Currently, the National Voting Rights Act does mandate that every state accept and use a by-mail voter application or voter registration form that's provided by the Federal Election Commission. I also believe that it's contrary with a federal postcard application that allows overseas citizens and military to register to vote. And I also think it's in conflict with our national change of address confirmation mailings. When we get address changes from the post office, we send those confirmation mailings to the voter. They send back updated information via that card. It's by mail. We need to be able to process that by mail. That would be in conflict with federal law. Another concern is the watermarking of ballots. Currently, just the sheet of paper, the ballot itself costs 10 cents. Depending on the type of watermark, it could range and increase the cost 20 cents per ballot up to $2 per ballot. So that is also of a concern. And we have a 25-year history of no excuse early voting. I do want to make note of the excuses that are allowed under 541. I don't see poll workers as being allowed. We don't have enough poll workers to vote in their home precinct on election day. We would have to implement a draft if poll workers were not allowed to vote early in our county. I think getting rid of no excuse early voting is anti-voter. It's a major backslide for the state of Nebraska. Brian and I both serve on federal committees, and I can tell you that Nebraska is seen as a gold standard, and really a lot of the other states envy us what we have here in Nebraska. For all of these reasons, I myself as election commissioner on behalf of our association and the Hall County Board of Commissioners oppose 541, and we would hope that you would not release it from committee.
Thank you, Ms. Overstreet, for your testimony. Check with the committee to see if there are any questions. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Ms. Overstreet. Can you talk a little more about the cost of the watermark? Do you know what would be the difference between going up to 20 cents, which is basically double the cost, and going up to $2?
Well, there are watermarks, there could be holographs, there's all kinds of different security marks that could be used. But another thing that's a major concern for some type of security mark is the use currently of our express votes, which use thermal paper. And I'm not sure how thermal paper can be watermarked or have a security mark put on it. So that's going to be costly. The express votes are what is available at every precinct across the state of Nebraska for someone with disabilities to use. It's a ballot marking device. It's not exclusive. Currently, it's not exclusive to someone with a disability. However, I believe some of the language in this bill reads as though it would now become exclusive to someone with a disability. And we also use the express votes for if a precinct would happen to run out of a particular ballot, someone could always use an express vote as a backup. And I think some of the language in this bill may prevent that. So that's a huge concern. I know it's a big, wide variety of cost in that watermarking, but we're looking not only at regular ballot paper, but also the express vote, a thermal paper.
And who is responsible to bear that cost of the printed ballot?
The taxpayers have to bear that cost. They pay for elections, they pay for the paper, they pay for the poll workers. So not only is this, I think it's disenfranchisement to the voter, it's also very onerous to Nebraska taxpayers. The hand count, even for example, in our county, if we would have hand counted in the presidential election, would have cost us $150,000 just to hand count that. And that's without security cameras. I think if we had to secure an area and add the cameras, that would be an additional $250,000 expense to hand count. I have a $450,000 budget overall. So that's going to be a huge increase for our county taxpayers.
I have one more question, sorry. So my ballot in November, I think was 4 pages. Does that sound right? Yeah, I'm seeing Mr. Cruz shaking his head yes. So 4 pages. Is this 20 cents to $2 per page?
It's per page.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? See none. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
We'll now ask for opponents on LB 541. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We have one more invited.
After review of the bill, Senator Holcroft answered questions posed by both testifiers and the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Senator Holcroft. First, I would tell you, I think it's no secret that I was not happy with the outcome of the last election. And
you won.
The statement applies. But I have faith. I do believe that the elections were fair and run properly. So I don't think that that's necessarily true that people don't believe in the outcome just because their preferred candidate didn't win whichever office it was. But I didn't want to talk about that. But what I want to talk about is what you said about why we can maintain the smaller counties being able to do vote by mail and the bigger counties can't.
Well, we're doing that now. So if we're in violation of some federal law, then we're violating federal law now. I'm really not changing anything in my bill that we are not currently doing in the state of Nebraska.
I'm not talking about whether we're violating federal law or not, and maybe somebody else smarter than the two of us will get into that at some other point in time. But my question is the wisdom of maintaining the universal vote by mail in Wayne County or whatever, Banner County or something like that. If the argument for your bill is that vote by mail is inherently untrustworthy, why are we relegating 11 of our counties and potentially 66 of them to untrustworthy systems writ large?
It comes down to cost.
Okay, so it's okay to have unsafe elections based off of cost.
Well, I would love to. That's why we do it that way now, is because of cost. So the argument that we change our procedures and processes, and we shouldn't because it costs too much. That's the way we're doing it now. So, and again, I think I see your point. I think We're allowing people to vote by mail in western Nebraska, and we're going to allow them to continue to do that, and there's a danger in that because we're losing control of the ballots. That's the argument I'm using for Douglas County, so why aren't we applying it equally between Douglas County and western Nebraska? And really it just comes down to they just can't. I'd love for them not to be able to vote, to have the same rules, but it's not physically possible for them to man up the number of polling locations in those western counties like we can in Douglas and Sarpy and Eastern.
Sure, and I mean, I agree that it might be hard to find poll workers. I would submit to you that it's hard to find poll workers in Douglas County, Lancaster County, Sarpy County as well.
Well, if you could make the case to the Secretary of State, I think he can waive that requirement. Now, I think you'll have a hard time. I think Brian will have a hard time convincing the Secretary of State he can't find poll workers.
The statute says 10,000, so I don't think, no matter how persuasive Mr. Cruz is, I don't think we can convince the Secretary of State we have less than 10,000 people in Douglas County.
But that's a good point.
So I did want to touch a little bit on the ballot, and I do appreciate, this is a really kind of a cool ballot with the raised thing on it.
And only 5 cents more.
And so, well, that was going to be my question. So Miss Overstreet said that it was between 20 cents and $2 more.
Yeah, I like to see her figures, but we did work that with the Secretary of State, and her numbers may have come from my bill from 2 years ago, where we were requiring 3 out of 4 unique identifiers, watermark being only one of them, but there was also an embedded stuff, and it really was a lot of stuff that we use in our currency, as far as strips, some of those magnetic strips and stuff, that may add up to $2 per. But just a watermark, like you see there, we estimate it's between 5 and 10 cents per.
Okay.
But still, you're still talking probably a million ballots. And so it's not insignificant. And that's maybe my final point here. It's a wrong year for this bill. As you know, anything with a fiscal note is probably not going anywhere. So it may be, and I hate to suggest this, it may be good for the committee to maybe hold it over until we get a little better budget. Or if there's something in here we can incorporate that's fairly low cost, then maybe we can look at that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Senator Holcroft? Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Senator Holcroft, for the bill. Did you look at any increased security measures on the system side as well as personnel side?
On the which side versus personnel?
On the systems themselves, how they're operating, and then as well for the people that.
Well, I think the Secretary of State actually has a pretty good secure system. I didn't get into that detail, but I'm sure they do background checks and the folks on their the people that work and process the ballots. I'm not really too concerned. This is Nebraska, so we do have, I think, fairly, people with integrity. I did have in my earlier bill to put cameras in all the polling places, so that from the time you receive your ballot, you would be under surveillance until you handed it back to somebody to put it into the box. And that's the other dichotomy I think I see here between mail-in ballots and voting at the polling places. When you go to a polling place and you show your ID, you're handed that ballot, and somebody's watching you the whole time, from the time you go over, fill out your ballot, and come back and hand it back in. Same thing when you go to the commissioner's office. They're going to hand you a ballot, and then you're going to go over here and fill it out and hand it right back to them. We don't do that with mail-in ballots. Who knows where that mail-in ballot ends up and going? So again, that's the difference between, I think, the two systems of voting and why we need to control the mail-in ballots.
Thank you.
We are fast approaching the end of the hour, so here are your reminders for today. The KZUM Newsroom is always open to hearing about any questions, concerns, suggestions, or even any story ideas that you might want to share with us. All you have to do is give us a call at 402-474-5086, extension line 6. If you give us a call and we aren't available, don't forget to leave a voicemail. Or, if you aren't much of a phone person, you can also find our social media handles and more newsroom information at kzum.org under that About tab. Speaking of our website, if you happen to miss a show, you can always head to the KZUM News tab, where we archive all of our shows and include a transcript with links to that day's content. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to Jack Rodenberg of the Rodenberg Music Experience. He put together all of the amazing original music that our news program uses. So once again, thank you, Jack. That wraps up our reminders for now. As you head out into the world, I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time. You just finished listening to KZUM News, an original production of KZUM Radio that airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. Coming up next is Beta Radio, so stay tuned.